Go ahead.
Well, thank you for being with us today here for our Triad Lunch and Learn. This has been a great series, and we're excited for folks joining us. Today, our presenter is Beth San Martin, and she's a public relations and marketing assistant for the Virginia Department of Treasury Unclaimed Property Division. She grew up in the Shenandoah Valley before attending James Madison University and graduating with a degree in media arts. She currently lives in Richmond with her husband and her one-year-old son, Grayson. And today she's going to share with us about unclaimed property. And this presentation will go over all the aspects of unclaimed property in the state's treasury, including what comes to the state, how to claim what's yours, and how to prevent it from going to the state in the first place. It will also cover estate claims for deceased loved ones and how to avoid getting scammed by fee finders who charge you to recover your unclaimed property. So we're excited to hear about that. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Beth.
All right, let's see if I can get my screen shared here.
Okay,
All right.
we got it.
You guys are seeing the presentation now? All right.
Yes.
All right, there we go. All right, so again, so my name is Beth. I'm with the Virginia Department of the Treasury. I specifically do unclaimed property. So we just have a little presentation here, but if you have any questions throughout, I believe I'll see it if you put it in the chat, or at least hear it or something. So just let me know if you have a question throughout, and I'm fine with that. So a little bit about Treasury in general. We serve as the central state agency. We do financial services for all the agencies and institutions all over the Commonwealth. We have 6 service area divisions. So general management, that includes like the treasurer, the deputy treasurer, and the people that support them. Debt management, risk management, operations, cash management and investments, and unclaimed property. Unclaimed property is actually the biggest one. So that's a lot of fun to be in the biggest one. So specifically about the Unclaimed Property Program, so we operate under a Virginia Consumer Protection Act. This act started in the 60s, I believe it was. And so basically it just means that companies are not allowed to hold on to money when they've lost track of the rightful owner of something. So it protects you when your money is not in your possession. It means companies have to turn it over to us. So the program is here to reconnect citizens with their property and the funds that have been turned over when the companies have lost track of you. We're kind of like a big lost and found. So, old bank accounts, security deposits you may have put down, but you never received back. Things like that can all come to us, and it's actually illegal for companies to hold on to things. They have to turn it over to us. So we do quite a lot of outreach, and that's my job. Is we try to get the word out as much as possible and allow people to know that our program exists, first of all, and make sure that they are coming forward to claim their funds. So we do an annual newspaper advertisement. You may have seen it. It's a pretty big insert that's like pages long. So that is actually legally required of us. And that includes all of the properties that have been turned over just in the last year. So if you've seen this insert and you see how big it is, just keep in mind, like that is just your area and what's been turned over in the last year. It's not even, everything in our system or anything like that. So that's just what got recently turned over to us. We do state and county events. We are not really doing anything in person yet. We're going to revisit that in 2022. But as of right now, we're sticking with virtual events, which have been extremely successful. And I'm really glad that we've been able to do that in the meantime. We do a lot of senior events, and those have been really great because seniors tend to, it's not that they tend to lose things more often. It's just that they've had more time to lose track of things over the years versus someone who's like 25. They just have more opportunities for things to get lost through the cracks at some point or another. We do things with local businesses, with churches. We have set up in local government offices during their tax day, like when taxes are due and people are going into their offices to pay their personal property taxes. We've actually set up in their office. And as people are like coming in and out to pay their taxes, we'll see if they have anything. And that's been really fun. We do 2 major call events, and that's with the local news station in Richmond. That's the call 12, and then call 10 for Roanoke, which is actually today and tomorrow. We're doing that tonight on their regular newscast, and tomorrow morning during their regular newscast. We've always done those call events, just now we're able to do call events with basically anybody because we have our own software and system to do those. And then of course we do TV, radio, and newspaper stories whenever we can. So we try really hard to get the word out, make sure people know that this program exists and to come claim your property. So this is just kind of like a small list of the kinds of things that gets turned over to us. So we get savings and checking accounts when the banks consider them dormant. It typically takes about 5 years of no activity on that account for them to consider it dormant, but each bank has their own policies. 5 years is just kind of typical. Any, payroll or commission checks you never received from an employer, they legally have to turn those over to us as well. Any stocks you may have held that you forgot about, those dividend checks, like those tiny dividend checks that get sent to you for $1.50 and you never cash the check because it was so small, eventually that'll get turned over to us if the check is never cashed. Any kind of deposits you put down, any kind of refunds you get back. I like to tell the story of I got this thing in the mail from Verizon or Comcast like a few years ago. And I almost threw it away because I was like, I don't have an account with Comcast anymore. Like they're just trying to get me to come back. I don't care. But like I opened the mail and there was my $30 deposit check. And I was like, oh, this would have gone to Unclaimed Property if I had not opened this. Insurance proceeds, we get a lot of those. So we like to encourage looking up deceased loved ones if we have any of their insurance policies. The only tangible things that we get mostly come from safe deposit box contents. We don't get a lot of actual tangible things, but usually they're from the safe deposit box. When those are considered dormant, they will turn the contents over to us. And we also sometimes get tangibles from local police offices and stuff like that. Like if you didn't claim your property after getting arrested, whatever they took off of you, if you didn't claim that on your way out or for whatever reason, then they'll eventually send that over to us. And then we also get some savings bonds, not all of them. There are a lot of federal ones that don't get turned over to us. Those go to the federal Treasury, I believe. But some savings bonds do come to us. So to date, and I will say this number could probably get redone, but our last calculation was at $2.6 billion sitting in unclaimed property right now that belongs to Virginia citizens. We've returned over $847 million to citizens. Our last number said 1 out of every 4 Virginians has missing money. But again, I think we could redo those numbers because just based on our experience doing these events and things like that, we've noticed it's closer to 1 in 3, maybe even 1 in 2. Just based on our couple of years experience of doing events and how many people find things versus how many don't, we think it's actually more people than 25%. And always keep in mind that businesses and other groups can have unclaimed property too. I've done a lot of claims for locally owned businesses and things like that who could have it as well. We've done any kinds of groups have had it. Like I think we even did one that a triad specifically had some unclaimed property. So always just kind of keep that in mind. So how do you prevent it? That's a big one. Always renew your forwarding address with any companies you have an account with. So like your banks is a big one. Any stocks that you have, make sure they have your current address, because if they're trying to reach you about your account, they're going to use the address on file. And if, say, you didn't use a forwarding address at the post office, or it got expired, they won't be able to reach you. So make that contact with businesses when you move. Make sure you're maintaining all your contact with all of your accounts. So, with your bank accounts, like your checking account, your savings account, even if you're leaving something in a savings account thinking it's, gaining interest, you want to just leave it there. Make sure you're doing something with it, like transferring a little amount in or out every year or so, just to make sure that the account is staying active. Just so it's going to stay there. You want it to stay active. Cash all your dividend checks, your payroll checks. Obviously, when you get an actual check, make sure it gets cashed, because that could make it out to us. And a big one is create a list of all of your assets and tell someone you trust the location, because we have talked to a lot of people who, they've lost their parents, but they had no idea that their parents even had these bank accounts. They had these insurance policies. They just had no idea. So we think it's really important to make sure that you know what you have and that somebody that you trust also knows what you have and where at least to access that information. So that's really important to make sure that it doesn't come to us in the first place. But once it does, we're here to help you. So it'll come to the state treasury for safekeeping and it'll stay here forever. There's no deadline. There's none of that. Once it's here until the rightful owner or your heirs come forward to claim it. It is completely free to get your money from us. The only charge you will ever get from us is if we have stock in your name and you request for us to sell the stock before it comes to you. There is a fee for that one service alone. And I think it's like $30 or something like that. And it'll just get taken out of the proceeds. But that is the only thing that's ever going to get charged on our end. And that's pretty rare. So there are a lot of scam sites out there, which I'll get to in a minute. So if you are on one of these sites, you think you're claiming your unclaimed property from Virginia and it starts asking you for like a credit card or bank account information or anything like that, you are not on the right site. Do not give them any of your information. It is completely free to get it from us. We are never going to ask for credit card information, bank account information, any of that. So always keep that in mind. So like I said, there are scams and there are things called fee finders. So I want to start out by saying like fee finders in general they aren't necessarily a scam. A lot of them will get you your unclaimed property. The problem is they will also charge you to do it. There are actual scams out there, but fee finders technically are able to get you your money. But any business that contacts you about your unclaimed property, they usually charge you like 10%, 15%, something like that, in order to do the service for you. But it's really not that hard. If you just go to our website, you can do it yourself. Beware of their phone calls, letters, and websites. We do send letters. We do make phone calls here in the marketing department. But we're very clear about who we are. We tell you how to verify who we are. So if you are uneasy at any point, and especially if it's with us, if you feel uneasy, we're not going to push it. We're going to tell you what you can do in order to learn more before doing anything. Whereas fee finders are going to try to be really pushy with you. So just, if you feel uncomfortable with something, it's probably not one of us. So this is just kind of an example of one of those fee finders websites. So they'll end up charging you at the end. Like if you find it, you'll like fill out the form or whatever, and then they'll be like, all right, put your credit card information in, and that's how you know that you're on one of these fake websites. This is another one. I think this is one of the bigger ones, the Never Cleaned. And again, they will eventually charge you to find your unclaimed property. I believe they do search multiple states, so that's kind of like their advantage, but there are our own resources that will help you search multiple states, so you don't need to go through one of them. This is one of the big ones. This guy, Kevin Trudeau, he put out a whole bunch of books and websites and stuff like that, educating you about, the money that the government doesn't want you to know about, which is very untrue. I'm a marketing assistant for Unclaimed Property. Clearly, we want you to know about it if I exist. So he put out all of these things of how to get your money back and was completely wrong in how to do it. He was charging you all this money in order to how to do it. Last I heard, he was in prison for fraud. So keep that in mind if you ever come across any of his products. I don't know if he got out or anything by now, but last I heard, he was in prison for fraud. So there's a good reason for that. So if you are getting contacted by anything like that, don't sign any contracts. The money will come to us eventually. So fee finders typically come to you before it comes to us. So like SunTrust, for example, as a bank, they will sometimes hire these fee finders to do the work of trying to locate you for them, because they have a legal obligation to try to find you before they turn it over to us. So sometimes they'll hire these fee finders to do that for them. And then the fee finders will also charge you in order to get that money to you before it comes to unclaimed property. You would have to sign a contract in order to get it back through them. The money will come to the state treasury eventually. So if they're contacting you, that means it's on its way to us. So honestly, we usually just recommend waiting and, saying, I'm not interested in doing it at this time. I'll just wait till it gets to the Treasury, because then you can get it from us for free and we make it as hassle-free as possible. But if you can't wait at all, like you need this money right now, you can always try to negotiate the fees down with them. But we do recommend just trying to wait. It'll usually come to us within like a year or so by the time they're contacting you. So the difference between fee finder and due diligence. So due diligence is that legal obligation I was talking about, where they have to try to locate you in order before they send it over to us. So I'm going to keep using SunTrust as an example just because it's easy. But so fee finder obviously is not free, but due diligence is absolutely free. So if SunTrust is sending you that letter, it's still going to be free if they're doing it themselves. They will just sometimes hire the fee finders to do it for them. So yeah, they may have been hired by the company that owes you, but due diligence is directly from the company. So, be wary of any weird letters you get anyway, but if it's coming directly from the company, we always recommend like calling the number that you recognize that for that company and talking to them about it. And they should be able to help you. If you feel weird about the letter, not calling the number directly on the letter, calling the company that you're doing business with. So fee finders also may have found your name on a state database. They may not be working with the companies that hire them. They may be just going through major databases. I know some states, they can submit FOIA requests for all of the information that's in the database. And they can get some information. They won't be able to get it all. Like, I don't think they can get your social security number or anything like that. That would be ridiculous. In Virginia, we actually are not covered under FOIA, so we don't give any information about our database to any fee finders. They can go on our website at any time they want, but it's a lot more work for them. And then due diligence, they attempt to contact you just before the funds are sent to us. They'll typically just send a letter and say, hey, like we have this account for you. If you don't respond by this date, then we're going to send it over. So this is kind of an example of when they're sending that due diligence letter. They'll have you fill it out for them and then send it back. And, they're going to ask for your current address because maybe they don't have it. And that's why it's going dormant. That's why it's going to get sent to us in the first place. We have had reports of where getting it from the original companies is just really difficult. So we have had people who just wait until it gets sent to us anyway, because we try to make it as easy as possible to claim from us. So sometimes it is easier, sometimes it's not, but we like to think we're really easy. But once it does make its way to us, there are multiple ways that you can find it. So our website is always available. So if you go to www.vamoneysearch.org, that is our website. So any other websites, like I said, if you're not on vamoneysearch.org, you are not on our website. So you will be able to do the search. You'll be able to make an account and download your claim form and fill it out and send it back to us along with copies of the evidence. The evidence that you need will be listed on your claim form. If you're not comfortable sending every single thing on the evidence, that's okay. As long as you send at least a photocopy of your photo ID, then we can at least get it started on that. If we need something additional, because we can't do it on our own, like a lot of other information we can figure out on our own, we do have access to government databases. But we'll contact you if we're having issues doing that. Those other two websites are those other websites I mentioned that you can search for other states. So unclaimed.org will, you have to search for it. It's like in their upper toolbar. You can find a map of the United States and you can click on whatever state you want. And it'll send you, like you click on Kansas, it'll send you to their state's search site. So that's an option. Missingmoney.com is from the National Association of Unclaimed Property. They are legit. That way you can search all of the databases at once. So that's kind of handy, but I will say Missing Money is unfortunately not very user friendly. We find it very difficult for people to use. So if you've only lived in like 2 or 3 states, we typically just recommend going to each state individually, just because missingmoney.com is just not very user friendly, which is very unfortunate, but it can be useful to at least know which states you may have something in and just kind of go from there. It can be very informational that way. You can mail it all back to us. And we also have an email option. You can email all of your evidence in. And right now you can call into virtual events. So we are doing a lot of virtual events right now where people will call in, see if they have any missing money, and we will start the process for them. So you get that one-on-one service that you would have gotten at an in-person event that we're not doing right now. But we can still do most of the work for you. We send the claim form directly to you. We give you all of the instructions. We help you through the process as much as we possibly can over the phone. So that's been really great that we've been able to do that. They've been really successful since we started them last year. So once you are in the process of claiming your unclaimed property, there are some important things to remember. Again, there are no fees. This is a completely free service. If you're getting charged, you are not on the right website. There is no deadline for claiming. So if you want to wait a little bit, you absolutely can. Once it is with us, there is absolutely no deadline. So it'll stay here until the rightful owner or their heirs come forward to claim it. So we don't push on deadlines or anything like that. You only need to send in copies of your evidence. We do not need originals of basically anything. I don't think there's anything that we require the original of. So just keep that in mind. You don't need to send any of your original documents. We don't want those to get lost. If you do send them in, we will send them back to you, but we just don't really recommend sending them in at all. Just because, we want you to hold on to those originals. And you can do claims for individuals, for joint. So like you and your wife own something together, for your businesses, and for estates. So if you lost a spouse, if you lost your parents, you can look their name up. There's actually a part of the website, if you're going through the claim process, you'll see it where you are either looking for individual or looking for a deceased person. You would use the deceased person version, and you can search for them. And then you would just need estate documentation. So a probated will is a really big one. And if you have a certificate of qualification from the estate, like from the courts, that would be great. If you don't, we typically just start with whatever it is you do have. If you have a death certificate, if you have a will, probated wills are best, but sometimes a regular will can give us at least some information to at least help you a little bit more throughout the process. So this is just an example of what our website looks like. Sometimes that middle picture will change, but basically this is what our website looks like. So if you're not on this website, you are not on the Virginia Unclaimed Property website. So that is basically Unclaimed Property, where you can go and find what's yours. We need to update this with the most recent years, but we basically have been able to find a lot of missing money in the last few years. So fiscal year 2016, we found around $40 million that year for Citizens. 2017, we were at, I think it was 52 million, sorry. 2018, we jumped that up, it was 79 million. And then 2019, it was 87 million. We were able to return back to Citizens that year. And then 2020, it did go down a little bit because of COVID. But we still have been able to do quite a lot, and we're really happy with even being able to return as much as we have been. So again, 1 in 4 Virginians has missing money. We don't want you to be a statistic. So this is my information. This is also in the chat here in the Zoom call. So I probably won't bother to leave this up for you since it is in the chat, but I will get out of this. How do I stop sharing now? There we go.
Thank you.
All right. Well, does anyone have any questions?
Thanks,
that was a lot of talking, I know.
Thanks for sharing that with us. I really didn't know about the fee finders, and I work, a big part of my work is scams and frauds that may target the communities out there. And so that was very interesting. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. That's kind of alarming, but I guess, I mean,
and they target seniors too. It's pretty scary. And there are so many scams that already target seniors. It's terrible.
Do you know if these are legitimate businesses that are just taking advantage of folks? Or is it
some are and some are scams? So there are legitimate fee finder companies. We try not to work with them as much as we can, just because we don't want people to get charged unnecessarily. But they are legitimate companies. They will get your missing money back for you. They'll just charge a fee in order to do it. I know we are very we watch out for it. If something doesn't feel right to us, we'll kind of be like, this is a fee finder claim. Like, can we just give it back to the original person without going through them? Like we don't want to make the check out to a fee finder. So if there are ways to get around it, we do try to work with that. We'll try to contact the original person. But we can't catch every single one of them.
Right.
So, a lot of the time they'll do it for a business, and they will have the business authorize them as someone working for them or something like that, like authorized to claim on behalf of this company. And we're like, this person doesn't work for your company though. Like, who is this person? So sometimes there are some red flags that we notice, but sometimes there's not. So we just don't recommend working with them because there's no reason to. And that way, and it's a good way to keep yourself from getting the scams too. Because if the scams and the fee finders are kind of seeming really similar, we just recommend, avoiding them all.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah, if a fee finder contacts you, even if you think they're legitimate, just say, okay, thanks for the information, and get off the phone. You can go to our website, you can call one of us, and we will help you, and we won't charge you to do it.
Beth, I do have a question.
Yeah.
What about an estate that's been through probate and been closed, and you find something?
So it kind of depends. In a lot of cases, the estate would need to be opened again, unfortunately. However, there are kind of ways around it depending on each case. So, for example, if the estate was for a surviving spouse, depending on the amount, we may be able to pay the surviving spouse directly because they're listed on the death certificate as a surviving spouse. We can't do that for like really, really high amounts, but it's kind of on a case by case basis. We'll look at it. And a lot of the times we are able to just pay directly to them. If there is a probated will that says I leave everything to my daughter so-and-so, if it's probated with the court, we can actually follow that directive and pay directly to that person. But it does have to be a probated will with the courts in order for us to do that. So there are kind of ways around it, but it kind of depends on a case by case basis.
Beth, you may have mentioned this, but does one have to pay taxes or report that if there's some income?
It depends. So a lot of the time, no. It kind of depends on if this is something that has earned any interest or is a new income to you. So a lot of the things that get turned over to us, like a savings account, for example, that's money that you would have already claimed on your taxes as income at some point or another because it was your money at some point. So we don't send a 1099 for that money that you already had because you've reported it at some point or another. However, if that savings account, we will also actually give you interest for the time that it's spent here. So if you earned, $100 of interest while it was here, we will send a 1099 for that $100 of interest that it earned while it was here. So it just kind of depends. But a lot of the time, no, we won't send a 1099.
Thank you.
But we do always recommend, talking to an accountant about that. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not going to pretend to be a tax expert. I can just tell you whether or not a 1099 is going to get sent to you. So we do always recommend, especially for larger amounts, make sure to speak with your accountant and make sure you're doing what you need to be doing.
Well, I'll say that I find that I always get reminded that there's unclaimed property to be checked whenever I read the news, because from time to time there'll be an article that says, hey, check with your state, see if you have unclaimed property. So I appreciate you doing this outreach because I'll forget too. And I was lucky enough to find $100 one time.
Nice.
I had a savings account when they first started and I forgot about it.
That's really common.
Yeah. Chris, did you have a question? You unmuted there for a second. There you go.
I did. I was going to ask, but I'll go ahead and ask now since you did, but I missed the first part. So how much money does the state have in the coffers right now? And do you ever retire the money to the state or ever give it?
Well, last time we did the calculations, it was at 2.6 billion. It could be more or less right now. I think the last time we did that calculation was a few years ago, but it kind of hovers around there. So we do keep that in our possession in order for people to come forward and claim it. However, there is like a certain amount that's just never going to get claimed, and we know that. So for example, things will get turned over to us with the owner as unknown. We're never going to be able to pay that out to anybody. We get quite a lot of those. And just, we know that people are never going to find out about it. It's just things like that. So we do actually donate to the literary fund every year. So that goes to K through 12 schools in the state. So we do get to donate every year to that. And we do quite a lot, actually. It's great that we're able to help them out so much.
Okay. Well, I'll change my name to unknown then.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Any other questions for Beth?
So Beth, if a community or a group wants to hold an event, they can invite you to come. And they
Absolutely. So my information is there in the chat if you want to hold on to it. That's my phone number. That's my direct line, and that's my email address. I am able to schedule events. We are currently scheduling for 2022 in general. So if you think your group may want to set one up, it's completely free for you guys to set up an event for your community. The only cost associated with it would be if you decide to pay for any advertising. So all advertising would be your responsibility for your group, but we provide all the collateral. So if you say, I want to do an email blast to my community, great, we will send you the actual email blast in order for you to do it. But if you say you want to put, an ad in the newspaper, that's great. We'll design the ad for you, but you would be responsible for the cost of putting that ad out. So it's really up to you and what works best in your community. A lot of people are able to do it for free because it just works best. Like they are able to hand out flyers. They're able to do whatever they'd like. And they'll put it on Facebook, and that's a great way. It just depends on how you reach your group the best way.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
thank you, Beth.
Sorry. I just wanted to remind everybody that we're recording this webinar, so you can also go back to agingtogether.org and see this and share it with others. It'll probably take us a week to get it up, but if you missed anything, thank you.
Okay, great. And our next Triad Lunch and Learn is going to be on November the 18th. And Officer Mike Grant will be presenting on being safe at home and on the road. So if you know of anybody that might be interested in that, please give them the information or forward the information to them or get in touch with us. Everything's on the Aging Together website, so you can certainly go to that site and pull down the flyer or more information, and you can also register there. So we hope everybody enjoyed this. Thank you, Beth, for being here today. We so appreciate everything you shared today. It was great information.
Great information.
Absolutely. And we look forward to seeing y'all at the next Lunch and Learn. Hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.